fulfilled prophecy or misinterpretation. Greetings, explorers of shadows and seekers of hidden truth. Welcome to another journey into the depths of time and mystery, here at the portal to the unknown. Today, we dare to unveil one of the densest and most enigmatic scrolls humanity has ever received. The Book of Daniel. What if Daniel's visions, long shelved by ready-made theologies and doctrines, were screaming a truth few dare to hear? A truth not about a distant past or a fixed future, but about a continuous present, a reality unfolding before our eyes, veiled by superficial interpretations and an aversion to questioning what we have been taught. What if the kingdoms seen in dreams, the beasts emerging from the abyss, and the crumbling statues are much more than mere symbols of past empires? What if, in our eagerness to fit every image into rigid, predetermined eschatological timeline, we are ignoring the true message behind the veil, the deeper warning Daniel tried to convey through the ages? This is not a common academic analysis. It's a grim invitation to delve into the hidden layers of a prophecy that refuses to be contained. Like, comment, and share this video with anyone who needs to question dogmas, feel the chill of revelation, and view the sacred text not as a control manual, but as an invitation to a disturbing truth. You've entered the portal to the unknown, where every prophecy becomes an enigma, and every enigma points to something not yet fully revealed, something that pulses in the now. The Book of Daniel, a shimmering beacon in the mist of time, is one of the most enigmatic and controversial texts in the entire Bible. Written amidst indecipherable codes, vivid metaphors, terrifying night visions, and celestial declarations that transcend human logic, it crosses the boundaries of time to throw us into a minefield of interpretations. For millennia, theologians and scholars have tried to unravel its secrets, often seeking a historical precision that Daniel may never have intended. But what if we lose the prophetic essence by clinging too much to literalism? In Daniel, chapter 7, verse 3, a breathtaking apocalyptic scene emerges. 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. These grotesque and powerful creatures are readily identified by tradition as the great empires that would dominate the world. Majestic Babylon, relentless Medo-Persia, swift Greece, and indomitable Rome. But does the depth of this vision end with this simple historical correspondence? Or is there something darker and paradoxically more current hidden in this image? Something that speaks of the spirit of the ages and not just of its chronology. Many modern scholars, in their quest for order and predictability, try to fit these visions into historical timelines with almost mathematical precision. Tables, graphs, and dates are diligently plotted, promising the unraveling of the future. But Daniel is not a historian in the conventional sense. He is a prophet, and prophecy, in its purest essence, is not a calendar prediction. It is not merely a script of future events. Prophecy is the decoding of the spirit of time. It is the revelation of divine and infernal patterns that repeat, manifest, and intensify throughout the human journey. It is a warning, a mirror. Let us enter the abyss of Daniel's beasts. The first, the lion with eagle's wings. Described in Daniel chapter 7, verse 4, the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. As I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a human mind was given to it. Traditionally, Babylon. But what if the lion, king of the jungle, and the eagle, lord of the skies, represent the majesty, excessive pride, and ambition to fly above the human condition? The initial glory of empires that see themselves as divine, but which, having their wings plucked and being made to stand on 2 feet like a man, are humbled, stripped of their divine pretension, and confronted with their own fragility and mortality. It is the fall of the titan who forgets his origin, and the transition from pure ferocity to a perverted rationality, a human mind that, far from being compassionate, is cunning and manipulative. How many nations today, or how many power systems, exhibit this initial arrogance, only to be confronted with their own vulnerability? The second, the bear raised up on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth, in Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second one, like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, arise, devour much flesh. Associated with Medo, the bear is heavy, brutal, insatiable. The fact that it was raised on one side suggests an imbalance, a hegemony of one part Persia over Media, or a power that is not symmetrical but imposed with brute force. The 3 ribs in its mouth. The conquest of 3 great regions, or insatiable voracity, a hunger for more territory, more resources, more power. It's not just an empire that conquers, but an archetype of power that devours, that consumes resources and lives without limits, guided by a hunger that is never satisfied. Don't we see this insatiability in economic systems or military powers, today, consuming nations and resources in the name of unrestrained growth? The third, the leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, in Daniel chapter 7 verse 6. After this, I looked, and behold, another, like a leopard, with 4 wings of a bird on its back, and the animal had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. I like the Greek Empire and the division after Alexander. The leopard is swift, agile, predatory, the 4 wings and 4 heads, in addition to symbolizing Alexander's rapid conquest and the subsequent division of his empire among his 4 generals, can represent the multifaceted and fragmented nature of power. A power that spreads rapidly wings, but also divides internally heads, generating conflicts and subversions. It is the age of information, of multifaceted propaganda, where truth fragments into 1,000 versions and control is exercised through a complex and seemingly decentralized, yet lethal, network. The leopard with its multiple heads can be the archetype of a perverse intelligence that operates on multiple levels and directions, spreading its claws on all sides. But the most terrifying is the 4th beast, described in Daniel chapter 7, verses 7 to 8. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful, and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Traditionally, Rome, with its subdivisions and the emergence of an anti-Christian power. But what if it is the very personification of the system that would come to dominate humanity in its last days? A beast so different that it transcends the categorization of previous empires. A beast of iron, relentless, that devours, breaks, into pieces, and stamps. It is the brute force of technology, of artificial intelligence, of omnipresent surveillance systems, of dehumanizing bureaucracy that crushes the individual. It is the cold, calculating logic that dictates the rules of the global economy, politics, and even human relationships. And the 10 horns of this 4th beast, do they merely represent the subdivisions of the Roman Empire, or are they the 10 main geopolitical, economic, or even spiritual power structures that shape our world today, exerting an influence few comprehend? And the little horn, that figure emerging from the horns, seemingly insignificant, but which with eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth speaking great things, it becomes the epicenter of unprecedented arrogance, a power that defies the Most High himself. It is not just a historical character, it is an archetype of leaders, ideologies, or movements that place themselves above God, that rewrite morality, and try to shape reality in their own image. This 4th beast, with its ability to trample what remains, echoes the annihilation of individuality, freedom of thought, and authentic spirituality in a world that prioritizes control and conformity. Do we not already see it operating in the shadows of global politics, in the influence of large corporations, in the manipulation of media narratives, and in the erosion of individual sovereignty? The famous statue from Nebuchadnezzar's dream, described in Daniel chapter 2, verses 31 to 35, is often interpreted as a linear sequence of kingdoms that succeed each other chronologically. The head of gold Babylon, the chest and arms of silver Medo Persia, the belly and thighs of bronze Greece, the legs of iron Rome, and the feet of iron mixed with clay, the final, fragmented empire. But what if this statue is also a symbolic portrait, a visual parable of the moral and spiritual degradation of humanity throughout the ages? From the golden splendor of paradise, or an era of greater purity and divine connection, to the final collapse into a fragile and incompatible mixture of iron and clay. The head of gold is not just Babylon, but the ideal of an anointed leadership, of a golden age where authority emanated from a divine, pure, and unquestionable source. A purity that, over time, becomes corrupted. The chest and arms of silver represent the transition to a less pure, more materialistic power, where wealth and military strategy begin to supplant divine wisdom. The division into 2 arms can symbolize duality, the polarization that intensifies as humanity moves away from primordial unity. The belly and thighs of bronze reflect power that expands by force of arms, the era of great military conquests, where glory is measured in terms of territorial dominion and subjugation of peoples. It is a more earthly, more palpable power, but one that has already lost the gleam of gold and the nobility of silver. The legs of iron symbolize rigidity, relentless force, and the indestructible nature of empires that impose their will with an iron fist. But the duplicity of the legs already points to inherent divisions, to a force that, although crushing, also fragments in its own rigidity. And then we come to the feat of iron and clay, the most intriguing and alarming mixture. It is the final age, where brute force iron mixes with the fragility of human nature, clay, creating a structure that, though seemingly powerful, is inherently unstable, brittle, and self-destructive. Don't we see this mixture in our societies today? The strength of our technology and organization, mixed with the fragility of our social, ideological, and spiritual divisions. Systems that seem invincible, but crumble under the weight of their own contradictions and the fragility of the human condition. It is the image of a world that fragments, but insists on remaining united by an artificial force, until collapse is inevitable. A prophecy that does not end with self-imposed destruction, but with the intervention of a stone not cut by human hands, which strikes the feet of the statue and breaks the entire system, turning it into dust. What would this stone be? The eternal kingdom of God that will come to supplant all earthly kingdoms, as traditionally interpreted, or something we do not yet fully understand. A power, a truth, a consciousness that emerges from a source that is not human, that transcends all the constructions and ideologies humanity has erected. It is a force of deconstruction and reconstruction, a catalyst for a new era, which is not imposed by human violence, but by a superior authority. It is an awakening, a revolution of consciousness that crumbles the idols of gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and turns them into dust, paving the way for a new era, more aligned with the divine. And what about chapter 8, where a ram and a goat represent clashing forces? Beyond the obvious reference to Medo-Persia and Greece, these visions transcend time to show us the archetypal conflict between established power, the ram, with its two horns, one larger than the other, symbolizing Persian supremacy, and the meteoric rise of a new, aggressive, and disruptive force, the goat, with its notable horn, symbolizing Alexander the Great. Daniel chapter 8 verse 5. This is the endless cycle of the rise and fall of powers, the clash of ideologies, the struggle between the old and the new, which repeats at all levels of existence, from macro to micro. What are the rams and goats in our geopolitical and ideological landscape today? Who is on a collision course, driven by a power that, although seemingly invincible, carries within it the seeds of fragmentation and division? And the 70 weeks of chapter 9, one of the most debated and, perhaps, most misinterpreted texts in the entire Bible. In Daniel chapter 9 verse 25, we read, "Know therefore and understand, that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks, the street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times." Many, many indeed, use this passage as a divine stopwatch, trying to calculate the exact date of the Messiah's coming, or the beginning of the end times. But what if the depth of the prophecy is much greater than a mere counting of years? What if the 70 weeks are not just a literal calendar, but a symbolic period, a divine cycle of time for humanity's spiritual preparation for the full revelation of the divine amidst earthly chaos? What does it mean for the Messiah to be cut off after the 62 weeks? Daniel chapter 9 verse 26. Is it just a reference to Jesus' crucifixion, or is it a pattern of continuous rejection of truth and light that manifests in every age? The Messiah can be more than a singular figure. It can be the anointed one who manifests in principles of justice, love, and truth, whom humanity, in its blindness, constantly cuts off and rejects, repeating a prophetic pattern. The fact that the people of the Prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, Daniel chapter 9, verse 26, points to the persistence of destruction caused by ignorance and opposition to the divine, a cycle that, unfortunately, repeats itself. The truth is that Daniel's visions are not just codes to decipher the end times. They are mirrors. They reveal much more about the spiritual state of humanity, the degradation of its values, and the nature of the powers that dominate it, than about the exact chronology of apocalyptic events. And this is precisely why they disturb so much, because they speak not only of what is to come in a distant future, but of what is already happening, of what is already manifested in our social, political, economic, and, more disturbingly, spiritual structures. Are the 10 horns of the fourth beast merely ancient kingdoms, or do they represent the 10 main global power structures, perhaps financial conglomerates, political alliances, or even networks of influence that operate behind the scenes of geopolitics, economics, and even religion, manipulating the masses and controlling narratives, is the little horn that speaks arrogantly against the Most High, merely a historical character like Antiochus Epiphanes, or an archetype of leaders, ideologies, and movements that place themselves above God, who proclaim themselves the ultimate source of truth and authority. Daniel, chapter 7, verse 25, says that he shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. Let's consider, what are the laws that are being systematically overturned or rewritten in our era? Moral, ethical, spiritual laws that were once considered universal, and the attempt to change the times. Could this be the dizzying acceleration of modern life imposed by technology, the devaluation of history and tradition, the annulment of the natural rhythm of existence in favor of unsustainable speed? The arrogance in uttering words against the Most High manifests in increasing extreme secularization, in the rejection of any transcendent authority, in the worship of human reason itself as the only divinity. Is this happening now? It's not a possibility. It's a disturbing reality unfolding before our eyes. The final question is the most crucial, the one that resonates most deeply at the heart of the portal to the unknown. Did Daniel have a vision of the past, or of the present camouflaged in the past, a timeless pattern that repeats and intensifies as humanity approaches its spiritual climax? What if we are living within the fulfillment of these prophecies, without fully perceiving their gravity, their urgency? And what if the error is not in Daniel or in the complexity of his visions, but in those who insist on reading him hastily, afraid to confront the truth, or with rigid doctrinal filters that no longer serve for the challenges and realities of today? Daniel's visions are a call to lucidity, an invitation to look beyond appearances, to discern the spirits operating behind world events and dominant narratives. They force us to question, what is our role in this great cosmic drama? Are we the ribs in the bear's mouth, oppressing and devouring, or the feet of clay and iron, living a fragile and illusory reality? Are we those who submit to the horns of earthly power, or do we seek the stone not cut by human hands that promises true and eternal liberation? If this content stirred something within you, if a peace moved inside you, if the reality of Daniel's words became more palpable and frightening, comment below on what you perceived. Share with those who need to awaken to this reality, and subscribe to the channel. Soon we will open even more forgotten visions, reveal hidden interpretations, and challenge everything you thought you knew about prophecies and the destiny of humanity. This is the portal to the unknown, where visions are not just read, they are lived, and truth, however dark, is the only path to revelation.